All right, everybody, very excited to be joined by one of our good friends, a guy that I was fortunate enough and we were fortunate enough to meet last year and really kind of hit it off, per se, Mr. Matt Moscona from After Further Review. Very
Nailed it.
excited. Great show featuring LSU down there. You guys do an unbelievable job. Matt, welcome to the dojo.
This is awesome. I'm very jealous of your room. Do you sleep here?
Yeah, under the table.
Look, we can't
Yeah, Blaine
disclose.
lives
We
here.
can't
This is where I
disclose all
live.
that
That's where you
information.
live.
Yes, Blaine lives here. He moves from cabinet to closet, does a really good job. But no, we talked yesterday on the show, and I firmly believe this, and I've always believed this. LSU with structure is one of the scariest monsters in college football.
Mhm.
You're able to win one with Les, who I don't think he knew where the front door to his own house was.
Straight-
Edo knew where the front door to his own house was, but he was probably too drunk to walk through it.
Mm.
Now that you have Brian Kelly, a guy that is a true CEO, a true program builder, somebody that understands structure and accountability at a place like LSU, I mean, the sky's got to be the limit, right?
It's essentially trying to recreate what LSU was when Nick Saban got the Baton Rouge. And you got to keep in mind, LSU's athletic director, Scott Woodward, was sort of the chief lieutenant of Mark Emmert at the time, who was the president of LSU, the chancellor at LSU, when he hired Nick.
Yeah.
So they are in many ways just trying to recreate the Saban era with Brian Kelly as that figure.
Not a bad idea.
It has, even though Nick was only in Baton Rouge until 2004, it laid the foundation for what has been the greatest 20 years in LSU football history. I mean, they literally won 3 titles, played for a 4th, and it's all because of that foundation that was built and the roadmap was laid out. So it's literally what they're trying to do with Brian Kelly, and he's kind of at the perfect spot in his career because he's done everything.
Yeah.
He's won everywhere
Mhm.
he's been. And some places aren't easy to win. I mean, the guy won Cincinnati and Central Michigan, and the only thing he hasn't done is won a national championship. That's it. It's the one box that he hasn't checked.
That's why he came to LSU, man.
It's why he's at LSU, because at Notre Dame, and we can speak to this, I lived in South Bend for a year. I'm very familiar with Notre Dame, the culture, everything there. You can get enough players to go maybe 12-0 regular season, get into a playoff, but you're not going to match 1-85 Alabama. So when you get into the championship game, that's the result you're going to have. There's a glass ceiling in South Bend. And at LSU, you don't have that. And that's why he's here, is to win a national championship.
I agree. I think he looked at Alabama in the tunnel when they were playing Notre Dame, and you see it on film. It's one thing to see it on film, and then you see it in person. I mean, I've talked to guys who are coaches over there now, analysts over there now, that's like, listen, from the outside looking in, you know how talented they are. But when you get there and you go inside and you actually see them, it blows your mind. And Matt, I do want to ask you, my Brian Kelly stepdad theory is one that I think is great. He's the stepdad that you never wanted, but you always needed. He's a stepdad that came home, told you to clean your room. You need to have better friends. You need to do your homework. Oh, you want to act a fool? Well, take the door off the hinges. No privacy. And you don't understand it until you're walking across the stage at Harvard, graduating cum laude, and you realize that guy was good for me. Am I there?
I think so. Yes, I love that. But LSU fans wanted that. I think everyone realized they needed that.
For sure.
As much as Ed had his supporters and people that love the fact that he was one of us. Dude, people in Louisiana love their culture.
For sure.
It is in a literal sense unique. There is no other place, even in the deep South, like Louisiana, because of the Cajun and French heritage roots. But like, people loved Ed, but also recognized, yeah, this ain't it. Like 5-5, 6-6, back-to-back seasons at LSU. Like, people want to win way more than they want their coach to have a funny spelled name with an accent.
That's exactly right.
So, like, I get asked the culture question all the time, the fit with Kelly. I'm like, do you realize the winningest coaches in the history of LSU athletics? Skip Bertman won 5 baseball national titles. Jewish guy from Detroit.
Yep.
Dale Brown, when he finished his career, was the second winningest coach in SEC basketball history behind only Adolph Rupp from Minot, North Dakota. And then Nick Saban, who's a Midwestern guy.
Yeah.
Like, it don't matter where you're from or if you like to eat gumbo. Like, if you win games, people will love you.
That's exactly right.
That's what Brian Kelly's here to do.
Winning cures everything, and losing exposes everything.
Well, let's jump to game 1 here. You have Florida State, okay? And this is not the Florida State of the late 90s. This is not the Florida State of the Jimbo Fisher era, but they're still going to have athletes running around. And we know that LSU has not started off particularly well. I mean, look at UCLA last season. Is there any chance that LSU slips up against Florida State, or will Brian Kelly have already taken the mantle, gotten the culture instilled, come off a good fall camp, and you beat Florida State to get into the SEC schedule?
Yeah, so, I mean, is there any chance? Sure. The LSU's got a lot going for it in that game. Um, it's a de facto home game. So, I mean, it's in the Superdome. There'll be 60,000 LSU fans. So if Florida State put out a release that they sold their 30,000 ticket allotment, the word is like LSU fans were buying tickets on the Florida State
That's gonna
side.
be perfect.
Of course.
I wouldn't
Of
be
course.
surprised.
Yeah, I
wouldn't be
And half of them want to be on that side.
Exactly, right? It's like, it's getting their ear. Yeah. So it'll be a de facto home game. Remember, Brian Kelly last year opened up against Florida State. Notre Dame opened up against
That's
Florida
true.
State.
That's a good
So
point.
he's got at least a little bit of a head start on roster, style, system, all that sort of stuff. And I just think LSU is better than Florida State is right now. It's a tricky spot because LSU's actually lost their opener the last 2 years. In the COVID year, they lost the home game to Mississippi State when
Yeah.
KJ Costello threw for 600 yards.
Yeah, he's the best Costello since Abbott was with him.
But and then 2 weeks later he lost his job.
Exactly.
So it's the craziest thing. But like that was the Ogeron era in a nutshell. But before that, LSU hadn't lost an opener since 2002. I mean, they had just been so good at getting off on a good start, and so it's been a little odd the last 2 years dropping that opener. I really think that this game sets up for LSU to get off to a good start. Florida State, you realize Florida State has not had a winning regular season since 2016.
Well,
It's
Matt,
shocking.
I'll do you one better. How does Florida State and Miami basically go down at the same time? It's such a weird thing to me. And now kind of looking at the triangle with Miami, and I love Mario there. I think he's going to turn it around. I've been a big fan of Mario for a long time. Thought he'd get the Bama job if he didn't go home to Miami. But when you look, it's just so weird to see some of the ACC teams that have been down. They were all down at the same time. Clemson's had a little bit to do with that, but it's just a weird thing.
So my theory on that, Miami's facilities are bad.
That's getting fixed, though.
It's getting fixed.
That was one of the things that Mario wouldn't have taken that job unless they'd have made that change. They just found the richest guy in Miami, not named Evan Shapiro.
Bro, it's crazy.
Who, by the way, was just seeing the future. Dude ended up doing what everybody else is doing now. Who thought that?
He was well before his time.
Well before his time.
And I'm perfectly fine with all of it, by the way.
Yeah.
But same at Florida State. One of the reasons Jimbo left Florida State, and this he Florida State people will push back on this, but Jimbo got sick of having assistants poached every year.
Mhm.
And like, if you go look at the assistant salary chart that USA Today puts out every year, Florida State's coordinators were regularly like middle pack of the Power Five.
Yeah.
Like, when you consistently have your assistants poached, when your facilities aren't up to par, like that's the culture Florida State's dealing with. It's not. It ain't 1995 when everybody wants to play for, Flamin' Spear, Chief Osceola, Deion Sanders. It's not that anymore. It's a similar problem that Notre Dame has. And when you're in a state that you have 3 Power Fives and everyone else comes and pillages your state for talent as well, you have to have a differentiator. And Florida State don't have it anymore.
Yeah, we don't want to bring a knife to a gunfight.
Bro, that's what they're
It's
doing.
pretty simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you about this quarterback room at LSU.
Yeah.
Is it going to be a two quarterback system, or is Miles Brennan going to be the guy?
So Brian Kelly's been asked that a bunch, right? The 2 quarterback question, which I think is a really good one. And he says he's had to do it in the past, but he does not want to do it because there really isn't an advantage to doing it. If there were a situation where one of the quarterbacks had a skill set where you could work a package, Taysom Hill with the Saints, something like that. I don't know if y'all remember Ryan Perrilloux at LSU.
I do remember.
He came out the year before me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The
I can't even
counterfeit
Florida,
money in
talk
the-
about
the
Florida
boat
State.
casino.
That's where I threw
Yeah.
with him at
Oh,
Florida
yeah.
State. Yeah.
Dude, so Perrilloux on the 07 championship team, Matt Flynn was the starter, but Perrilloux was so talented that they had packages for Ryan. I don't think that exists on this team. You got 4 quarterbacks. Walker Howard is the true freshman.
He's the best one on the roster, in my opinion.
He's going to redshirt, and he's good with it, by the way. Like, I told you, you remember Jamie Howard was his dad who played at LSU in the 90s,
Oh, yeah.
if you remember
Jamie
the name.
Howard.
So, but Jamie has done an awesome job raising his kids. And Jamie's the type of guy who's he's not LeVar Ball. Like, he's not going to talk about talk up his kids. Like, it's hard for him to,
Yeah.
But he told me on air, on the record, he said, listen, if Walker never plays it down at LSU, the team will be better because he's on the team. Like, he's that kind of guy. Walker's gonna be good, but Jamie's also a guy who had some struggles played early in his college career, had some struggles, and he knows the benefit of sitting and waiting. So he wants his kid to get that benefit, the benefit of waiting. So that means you got 3 guys. There's Daniels, there's Brennan, and then there's Nussmeier. The fans fall into, if you ask LSU fans, they'll say you have the Miles Brennan people that have watched this guy battle injuries 6 years. Guys, for perspective, Miles Brennan committed to Les Miles and Cam Cameron. That's how long he has been here.
Wow.
That's how long he's been here. Okay.
He's got a PhD.
There's people that just want him to have the great ending.
Yeah.
And then there's people who they're obsessed with the Garrett Nussmeier, shiny new toy, what you don't know type thing. My feeling is I think Jaden Daniels fits what Brian Kelly wants.
Okay.
He started 30 games. Brennan started 3. So he's the only guy with a ton of actual on-field experience. And when you look at the success Brian Kelly's had, if it was Ian Book, if it was Everett Golson, Malik Zaire, run through his quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Dudes that can move the pocket, make plays with their feet.
Yep.
That's Jaden Daniels. We didn't get to see it in the spring because you're not going to go run your quarterback in a spring game or expose him to anything. But there were times where you could see him sort of start to take off, and it was pretty electric. I think that's the differentiator. And if you're Brian Kelly, you got to win, right? You've got to win games. You go with the stable thing, the thing that the guy that started 30 games, the guy that's been through those battles before.
Well,
right?
so what's the number for LSU this year? Looking at the schedule, I got them 4-4 in the SEC. Think it's going to be a good year. Year 1 under Brian Kelly. Let him get his troops in there, get the culture exactly how he wants it. What number does Matt Moscona say?
Yeah, I think I actually agree. I think they'll be 4-4 in the league, and I think they'll go 8-4. I think their ceiling isn't necessarily as high as fans would probably like to think it is. I think best case is you have a season like Michigan State had last year with all their transfers, and you just have a lot go your way.
Yeah.
But I also don't think the floor for LSU is as low as it's been. When I look at the roster, the talent, the schedule, I don't know how they go below 7. So I think you split the difference. You fall in at 8-4. You got to go play at Auburn, at Florida. I don't care how down they might be.
Yeah.
And those are hard places to play.
At Arkansas.
You're at Arkansas,
At A&M.
at A&M.
Oh,
And then you're home against Bama, which it's hard. just you can scribble the L. And then the Mississippi schools, I think they should win at home. And then you get Tennessee, who rotates on as well at home.
which that's a scary.
It is
that's a
because
scary
they're
game.
going to throw the ball and they're going to score. So they're going to win a game that's going to surprise people. They're going to lose a game that's disappointing. It's
Sure.
going to be one of those types of seasons. But guys, when you're talking about back-to-back 500 football seasons, like if you go 8-4, like it's an improvement.
There's hope.
Sure.
You're showing hope.
You're trending in the right direction, which is what they need to do. But I think that's realistic for this team.
Yeah. You were talking about the quarterback room now. I want to ask you about Max Johnson because he had some big games at LSU. Why did Max Johnson take off when Brian Kelly came there? What do you expect from him if he's going to be the Texas A&M starter?
Cone, people ask all the time, like, why would a starting quarterback leave the spot where he's starting? And it's a good question, but look at what Max Johnson walked into.
Yeah.
He shows up in Baton Rouge in 2020, amid COVID, the world shuts down. And then there were the BLM marches, and there was a very notable scene at LSU where the team marched without its head coach. It was a pretty ugly internal situation. You have the COVID season, you go 500, you blow out that offensive staff, right? You bring in a new offensive staff. He's Max is the starter. If you watch the games, guys, I don't know how many times I could picture last year Max Johnson on the field, like begging the sideline, like, give me a play.
Yeah.
He was frustrated. He got hit a ton. He took a bunch he took a lot of the blame for what didn't go well. They have a new staff coming in, another new offense now. It made sense for him to push reset. And I'm bullish on Max Johnson. I'm not telling you I think he's ever going to be a first-round draft pick. I don't know that he's got the skill set to be that. But every intangible that you want, I think he's got. And then he's the son of an NFL quarterback.
Sure.
When you talk to people who know, they're like, that's how it's supposed to look. The drop back, the form, everything's like, yep, that's right.
He spin the ball. The ball spins coming out of his hands. And we think, I think collectively that he's better than Haynes King. I think A&M would be in a much better position with Max.
I
in there.
agree.
I don't know how Jimbo is on lefties. Some coaches are weird about that.
Yeah.
They're so used to coaching right-handers, and the offense is, now you're sprinting out opposite and doing weird things. But no, it's going to be really interesting to watch this season, Matt. We all know that LSU fans have high expectations. We had high expectations when you came in here, and you obviously knocked it out of the park, my friend.
Oh, yes.
It's just good to see
our
it.
bourbon connoisseur, man.
That's exactly right. You and him talking about bourbon is just like, I feel like.
Oh, no,
like
I listen.
An old
He talked.
speakeasy.
I listen.
An old speakeasy.
That's actually what it felt like. Philly had to get like a hat with a feather in it.
That's exactly right. Like going to a phone booth, typing a number. Oh, they're going to let me
I'm just over here like, what do you like, Matt?
That's
What do you like?
exactly right.
Oh, it's LSU 8-4, but what else?
Yeah,
what do you like?
these are actually formed from the tears of children, and it's distilled for years in a barrel somewhere in Wyoming. But my friend, after further review, great show. Obviously doing great stuff. Excited to get on, and maybe we go hang out a little bit later. What do you say?
I would love to. My pleasure as always, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Hey, if you like what you heard and you want to hear more, go on over to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher. Check out Crane & Company live every day from 2 to 3 Central, where you can hear us spit it straight.